The relationship between a sales leader and their sales rep, it's a really interesting one because you're with this person almost more than you're with your family at times. And that sales leader, oftentimes you look to them as a leader, a guide, a mentor. Now imagine if that person is horrible. We've been there. We've all experienced bad bosses. And it could weigh on the way that you sell. Now imagine if that leader is great and they actually listen to you and understand your emotions and are able to guide you. That's going to make a world of difference. And on today's discussion, my friend Marc Levine is going to talk about 3 things that sales leaders do and sometimes don't realize it that could be hurting the relationship with their sales rep. This episode is brought to you in part by TSE Certified Sales Training Program. It's a program designed to help new and struggling sellers improve and take their skills to a whole new level. Get access to the first 2 modules absolutely free. Find more information at thesalesevangelist.com/free course. This episode is also brought to you in part by Sales Success Summit. This year's Sales Success Summit is held in Austin, Texas from October 14th through the 15th. Learn from the top 1%ers in sales what makes them succeed and how you can improve. Sign up today at top1summit.com. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have Marc Levine. Marc is a return guest on our podcast. He's a great friend of ours. He's an amazing seller. He's an exceptional leader. And dude just knows how to connect and to really have meaningful conversations with individuals. He's been working on something in his business, the organization that he has. He does a lot of consulting and training. Currently, his content is focusing on sales leadership and how leaders can really connect further with their individual reps, have better relationships with those reps, and naturally have the reps return with higher performance. It's amazing how it works. You can find more information at ImprovMySales.com. Now, on this particular episode, we're going to talk about 3 things that sales leaders do, and they may not even realize it, that hurt relationships with them and their sellers. Listen up. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Good morning, Donald.
Man, I'm so excited to have you back on the episode, back on a podcast. And the last time we met in person, guys, Marc came down to Florida and we were able to go out to lunch and he made me eat healthy. So now Marc is in Hawaii. I'm here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and we're going to have a good discussion this morning. I do have a bottle of water on my desk, so I am practicing my healthy eating, even though it's not food right now. So,
Donald, it amazes me that you think having water is eating healthy. So that says a little something about Donald's eating habits.
Well, you know what? I have a banana on my desk as well. So banana and water, and I had granola this morning. So there you go.
All right. You're winning, buddy.
Well, Marc, man, before we dive in, some folks are new to the audience that probably haven't heard about you before. Tell us a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, great. So I founded my business, which is called ImprovMySales, about 4 years ago. And we're dedicated to creating wonderful, profitable places to work. So this comes after 10 years in sales as a national account executive and technology and professional services. And then really for the last 15 years, I've been developing people, working first for 2 companies out of New York. One was an employee relation company, employee retention company. The other was a small training and coaching company. So really for the last 15, 16 years, I have been developing leaders and teams, teaching people communication skills, selling services for one of the companies to clients like Citibank and Prudential and Best Buy. But really for the last couple years, my focus has been on creating wonderful workplaces and using some of the latest technology, and I call this technology, in social science about what makes people great and what engages people. And this is really exciting stuff. It's backed by data. And I'm excited to share it with your audience right now.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, man. Well, Marc, let's start off the discussion we want to talk about. And this is going to tie right towards what you just shared. There are 3 things leaders do to hurt relationships with.
And Donald, there's probably 6 things. We're only going to talk about 3 today.
All right, we'll do the 3 of them. If you guys want to get the other 3, you have to reach out to Mark. There we go. But the 3 things that leaders do to hurt sales reps' relationship. Let's name those 3 things, and then we'll go ahead and break each of them down. Fair enough?
That sounds good. All right, number 1, most important, the leader does not create a psychologically safe environment. Number 2, the leader forgets about humanity. And number 3, the leader is emotionally unintelligent. They're not practicing emotional intelligence.
Dang. You got my attention. Let's dissect the first one.
Yeah, and let me give you a little context. I mean,
Sure.
I know this has been, August has been Leadership Month, and you've had people talking about a variety of things. And there's a lot of important things to being a good leader, setting a vision, becoming a good coach. The context for today, though, is talking about creating a culture where sales reps, actually where humans thrive. And what we're talking about can be used with any team. In fact, you're a new father, right?
Yep, sure am.
It's been a couple weeks.
Yep.
So these are the type of things that you would want to think about even as being a parent, because it's about creating an environment where your young son can thrive, can feel safe, and can really succeed.
Very interesting that you bring that up. It's something that can apply outside of the work environment. And I think sometimes with our leadership skills, we hang it on the door and we leave for the day from work, or from our whatever profession that we do, or church or whatever, but those things can still be applied. So interesting you brought that up. So
yeah, and what I like to say about my work is it's safe for human beings. It sounds funny, but it's not just something you do in the office. Because what I'm talking about is things that are going to build any relationship. So one of my favorite things is when my clients say, yes, I use this at work, and it helped increase sales, and it helped increase engagement, but I used it with my wife. I used it with my husband. It's a really nice feeling to make a difference inside and outside the workplace.
That's awesome. So can we go a little bit further with that, with the leadership though, like sales manager with this first one here?
So let's talk about the leader doesn't create a psychologically safe environment. So let's define what the hell is psychological safety.
Yeah, please.
Okay, you and I talked about this a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. This was a term that was first created by Amy Edmondson, a social psychologist, about 20 years ago. But it really came into prominence about 5 years ago through Google. Google did a 2-year study analyzing all their top teams to figure out what were the top qualities on their most effective teams. And here's the interesting thing. It wasn't technical expertise. It wasn't someone who was there the longest. It wasn't the people who were the smartest, the people who had the best degrees. They came up with 5 things. Number 1 by far was psychological safety. And what they found is that teams that had psychological safety, the team members stayed longer at Google and they produced more revenue. So what the hell is psychological safety? I'm sorry I keep saying the word H-A-L-L, but I'm not excited about it. It's a team norm. So it's not between you and I. It's a team norm that says it's safe to take a risk. It's safe to be vulnerable. It's safe to ask for help. It's safe to disagree with the rest of the team. And then you will be honored for that you will be validated for that. So here's an example. I have a friend of mine who sells HR consulting services. He's been doing it for about a year. About 20% of that is software. When he was first starting, he never quite got a grasp on how to demonstrate one key piece of the software. He's been in the organization for about a year and he's slumping. He goes out on a demo with the CEO. He makes sure that she demos the software. But what he really wants to say afterwards is, I don't know how to do this part.
Ooh.
But he doesn't say it to her because what's he afraid of?
I don't want to look bad to my boss, the CEO, and look incompetent.
Yeah, I don't want to look incompetent. I don't want to lose my credibility. And especially when I'm in a slump, when my numbers aren't there. It's one thing to come in and say, hey, I'm 150% of quota. But imagine the feeling he walks around with. And do you think the CEO would like him to come forth and say, I don't understand this. I don't know how to do this?
If this person was taught properly. But I think for the most part, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think, I don't know. I guess I'm off on that.
Well, as a leader, as a parent, when your son grows up and doesn't understand something, you want him to be able to come to you. You want him to feel safe enough to come to you without feeling embarrassed.
Yes, I do want that. But I guess we'll go back into the world. How can I, and this is where you're saying the leader should do it. But in some cases, I've worked in companies where it's like, you should know this stuff by now. And you've been slapped once or twice before, figuratively, not physically. So now it's like, I don't want to tell them that I don't know this, or, you know what I mean? Like, you feel like your job's going to be in jeopardy if you say something.
Yeah, exactly. And if you've learned it once or twice and still don't know it, that's probably something on you.
Yeah.
What happens a lot of times, though, is organizations that don't train well, you get thrown in very quickly.
Yeah.
You're new, there's a lot going on, and you don't understand something.
Yeah, true.
As a leader, you need to have a team that can come to you and say, we don't understand this, or I'm not sure how to do something, or I need some help. Because if you don't have that, it's going to show up later in the numbers. It's absolutely going to show up. We want our team members to be able to come to us as leaders early on. Don't you want people to be able to come early on in the sales cycle instead of waiting to the end?
Oh, of course, yeah.
You want them to be able to say, you know what, I don't know who the economic buyer is. I don't have a coach on the account. Rather than wait to the end and lose the deal and then find out in a post-mortem what happened. That's the essence of psychological safety, Donald. It's creating an environment where people can ask for help, where people can be vulnerable, where people can take risks, and it's supported. And it's vital. I mean, Google figured this out. We now have data that says that leaders who create psychologically safe environments, their team members are more effective and they want to stay longer on the team. And in a time now where people are jumping from team to team, from company to company, retention is vital.
I wish all my sales leaders in the past had a good understanding of this stuff and actually connected with Marc. He's going to continue to share some more wisdom with us, some more of these things that are hurting relationships when we get back from the break. You're listening to the Sales Evangelist podcast, and I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. Way too often we find sales reps who become lethargic in their career. You know what I mean? It's just kind of, you've been there too. You just go into the slump and you feel like you can't get out. You're not closing deals, no new opportunities. And it's just blah. What I've seen to help me at that point is obviously listen to podcasts like this, read books, but also attend events where I can connect with other sellers. People who could challenge me, people who could bring new ideas and new thought. And that's why I recommend everyone to check out Sales Success Summit. The neat thing about this event is that you get a chance to connect with other top 1%ers, people who are doing amazing in sales. Learn from them what's making them succeed, what's causing them to get out of their rut. How did they elevate to the status they're at right now in their companies? If you are serious about earning six figures as a sales rep, I highly recommend you go to top1summit.com. Again, top1summit.com and register to attend the event. Last year, one of the attendees, a sales rep for a small company, went to the event. He networked with other top sellers. Since then, he landed a position at Teradata where he closed a huge deal. Now he's receiving a multi-six-figure commission check from it. All because he went where iron sharpens iron. If you want to learn from the best, go to top1summit.com and register today. This episode is also brought to you in part by TSE Certified Sales Training Program. As a young seller, I just didn't have it. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any help, and I had to figure things out on my own. Luckily, I was able to take part in a group training course. Not long after the course, I started to see a hockey stick in my sales performance, and I knew this stuff worked. So I started to talk about it and share the advice and ideas, and I said in the future, whenever I create something, it's going to be similar to that. And that's how we've designed TSE Certified Sales Training Program. To get the first two modules of the course for free, go to thesalesevangelist.com/free course. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/free course. When you register and become a member, you will get the other 10 modules, as well as access to our community of other sales reps that you can connect with and join conversation with each week. Find more information again, go to thesalesevangelist.com/free course. Hey, we're back, and Marc is going to continue to share with you some of these insights on the things that sales leaders are doing to hurt relationships with their sales reps, and to see how you can stop them, how you can fix it, and how you can improve your organization. Listen up. So how can I do that? I'm a leader, I'm working with a company where I have a small sales team. How can I give these individuals this assurance of psychological safety? And I don't want to go into the next point, but this is just so fascinating.
Well, there's a couple things. It doesn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It happens in a moment when one of your sales reps comes to you and says, I have a problem and I need your help.
Yeah.
And instead of reacting, you support them. You validate it. You validate the behavior of asking for help.
Mm.
And that you do that enough times with enough team members, and all of a sudden this team realizes that Donald really wants to help and that it's safe enough. It's not a career limiting move to come and ask for help. That's one of the things that makes a difference. The other thing you need to stop doing as a leader is blaming. Blame is the kryptonite to psychological safety.
Is that blaming like the team members, blaming the company, the industry? What are some of the typical things people fall on when they blame?
Well, it starts with the team members, of course. If someone doesn't hit quota. And you know what? There's a difference between blame and accountability.
Yeah.
Let's think outside of sales for a second. Has your wonderful wife ever blamed you for anything? Or have you ever blamed her for something?
Oh yeah, she's the perfect one. So I'm the one that I've always done the wrong, blamed.
Right. And what does it feel like when someone is blaming you?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you're threatened. I feel threatened, or I think individuals will feel threatened if they're being blamed, or feel like, again, going back to the incompetency, or feel like they're not understood. I think some of those will tie back to it.
Yeah, blame feels like that. And our natural instinct is to defend ourselves when we feel blame. Now, that's very different from accountability. I'm not telling any leader to lower their standards. In fact, when you have psychological safety, you can raise your standards. You can expect more from people. It's the difference between, why didn't you hit quota last month? Why did you lose that sale? Why aren't you doing this? Right? You can feel the energy. And by the way, when we blame, it doesn't feel good in our body either.
Yeah.
If you've ever blamed someone, one of my clients, I said, what does it feel like when you blame? He said, well, I start out at a level 8 out of 10. I feel really good. I feel like I'm in control. But by the end, as I look at the face of the person I'm blaming, I feel like a negative 8, which is different from saying, hey, Donna, let's talk about you didn't hit your numbers last month. I know you're disappointed. I know that's not the standard that you want to live up to.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the things that happened along the way that contributed to you not hitting your numbers and find solutions.
Love that. That makes me feel, if I was working on a team with a manager or a leader like that, it make me feel trusted or feel like I'm comfortable opening my mouth and to have a dialogue or have a conversation.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because you want to learn. If you're not hitting your numbers, you want to find ways to get there. But you also probably feel alone. You're a little beaten down.
Yeah.
And, you're in a fragile place. So if someone comes at you blaming, you're not going to speak up. You're not going to talk about what's really happening. You're not going to let them into your world.
Yeah.
And then how can your leader who has good intentions really help you? The psychological safety, the creating an environment where we're not blaming and yet we're holding each other accountable is vital. Here's something else you can do as a leader to practice, to start to create a psychologically safe environment. You can admit your own mistakes. Have you ever worked for someone who said, Donald, I made a mistake here. I didn't handle this well?
It very rarely, and I've worked for a couple individuals like that, but the majority of the people I've worked for has been the opposite. They don't want to accept, especially in the sales world, man. Come on, they didn't want to give any weaknesses or to say I made a mistake. It was like you're saying, it's going back to something else. And I think if my boss was to say that, my leader, if my parent or someone in my life that I look up to was to say that, it would make me feel comfortable to, I'm not going to look at them as weak. I'm going to look at them as stronger, or that they have the confidence to be able to say that, because I know that they're freaking awesome. So if they can admit to their faults, it's going to help me to admit to my faults or my weaknesses and help me to perform better for them.
It's exactly what happens. That's what the research shows. It shows two things. One, when you admit to your mistakes, when you admit to the things you're not good at, that people around you will come closer and they will open up about theirs, and that it is the exact opposite of everything we've ever been taught. It is not a weakness. It is a strength. It's actually, and we call this vulnerability. Vulnerability is a superpower. And when I work, I do a lot of one-to-one coaching with leaders. As I teach them to use vulnerability, they are finding that they are getting closer to their people. I work with a lot of fast-growing organizations, ones that had a very strong culture to start out, but as they expanded, they've lost some of that. And I say, well, just go around and talk to your people and be vulnerable and watch how they open up to you. Vulnerability, admitting that you're not perfect, because by the way, does your sales team know you're not perfect?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They see it. When you admit it, and it's the funny thing, I know you're a sports fan. We see athletes who make mistakes. We see politicians. Don't we just want them to own it and say, you know what? I made a mistake. It wasn't like my phone was hacked. I did that.
Yeah.
So it really is a superpower. And it's one of the things that people can start doing right away. And they will see their sales team come closer. They will see their sales team open up to them. And they will have the kind of productive conversations that they want to have. That's number one.
Let's go on to number two. Yeah.
Yeah. The leader forgets about humanity. It's really interesting, right? Salespeople are salespeople are like stand-up comics. I used to try stand-up comedy, and now I perform improvisational comedy. Stand-up comedians and salespeople go out there knowing they're going to get rejected, knowing that they're not going to do well. Stand-up comedians go up there and try out material and hope the audience is going to laugh, and salespeople go up there. And in some ways, they show this confidence. But what we know about salespeople, it's a pretty fragile group.
Yeah.
And when you have a leader who remembers that you're a human being, not just someone who is helping me hit my numbers, everything changes.
Yeah. And I've worked with a company where my sales leader, she was really conscious of the fact that, hey, Donald was trying to, whether it was like buying a house or, trying to do a major thing in my life, she was cognizant of that and was a human being. And, it made our relationship better that I was willing to, I recognized that she was going to understand some of the challenges, but it put me in a situation where I guess, going back to the last comment, where I wanted to help her out in any way I can. So I was willing to go above and beyond to make sure she looks good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we find is that leaders who are human beings, who understand the humanity of people on their team members want to go above and beyond. They want to put in what's called that incremental effort, not only for themselves, but you want to do it for her because you want her to look good.
Yeah.
All because she remembers that you're human.
Dude, love it.
There's a second piece to that too. And one of the mistakes I made early on in my sales career as a leader, and even what I've made as a trainer, is trying to make others into mini Marks.
Yes. Preach. Tell me a little bit more about this one.
I'll preach to this one. So, I don't know. I came out of the womb with a curious guy. Always have been great at asking questions, which is the opposite of a lot of sales reps. So I wanted to make sure, and we know how important it is to ask questions, but I wanted to make sure that every salesperson on my team could ask questions as well as I did. I wanted them to do the things that I did. But guess what? They're not me. They have their own strengths. And if I try to force things that I do well onto them, they're just going to feel resentful. Instead, I need to honor their strengths and then work on some other areas. When we validate what people do well and then say, hey, let's work on some other areas, they're engaged, they're excited, they're not defending, they feel heard, they feel understood. As human beings, we want to feel heard.
Yeah.
We want to feel understood. We want to feel, as you said, that your leader knows that you're looking to buy a house and checks in with you on those things.
Yeah. And yeah, it makes a whole better relationship, a whole better company, a whole better culture, in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, Google's found the same thing, that team leaders that help team members advance their career are looked on in a different way, that, people want help from their leader. They want to feel understood. So that's number two. As a leader, remember that you are working with human beings who have hopes, who have fears, who get scared, and honor that part of them.
Love it, man. And then what's our final point that we can do to make sure a relationship with these sales reps are on point or in a good situation?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about having a strong relationship with your sales team. And here's the interesting thing. Most sales leaders were promoted because they built strong relationships with their clients. They know how important that is. And it's the same thing with the sales team. So here's the last thing that leaders do that can hurt a relationship is that they are not practicing emotional intelligence. So let me define that for a second. In emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman, about 20 years ago, wrote a book on emotional intelligence. And what he discovered, he was a New York Times writer, and what he discovered is that there was research out there saying that people who are emotionally intelligent were more successful in their careers than just relying on intelligence. Emotional intelligence is that ability to understand and regulate your own feelings, to understand and empathize with the feelings of others, and to use that information to guide your thinking. So let me give you one other term, and then we'll talk a little more specifics. An emotional trigger. An emotional trigger is an involuntary response in a person to a situation, to an event that often produces a very intense, excessive emotional reaction and kind of takes you over. So here's an emotional trigger a lot of sales reps have. The client is moving along nicely in the conversation, and then they bring up an objection. And the sales rep goes, oh my God, I'm going to lose this. And they get into that fight, flight, or freeze response. The fight looks like, I'm going to just talk real fast and try to talk them through the objection.
Yeah. And it comes off to the buyer as, I don't know, like you become so desperate now.
Yeah, you become so desperate, and the buyer just naturally pulls away. So as a sales leader, you have emotional triggers also. And if you're not aware of them and you're not managing them, it's going to do you in. A sales rep doesn't hit quota. A sales rep loses a big opportunity. When I was a leader, I wanted to move my team from geography to niches. And I had a lot of resistance. And every time one of my salespeople did not focus on their niche, I just had this emotional reaction that took me over. I started to judge them. And then I would try to have a conversation with them about their niche. How effective was I going to be in that conversation?
Not very effective.
Yeah, because I wasn't really aware of my emotional triggers. I wasn't doing anything to regulate them. Sales is such an emotional game. There are so many opportunities for a rep and for a leader to get triggered. Most of them are going to come up again and again. They're not surprises. Someone's not going to hit quotas. Someone's not going to adapt a new piece of technology. Someone's not going to put something into the CRM. Right? Sound familiar?
All the time. All the freaking time.
Yeah. And we still want to hold people to standards. We want to do it in a way that engages them. And we want to make sure that when we're talking to them about something so important, that we are not being run by a program that's making us less effective, that we're not in that fight, flight, or fear response. So one of the things I advise my clients is to make a list of all your triggers. Think about all the situations, all the people that just start to trigger that. And there's always someone on the team, right? As soon as they call you, it's like, oh my God, here we go again. Well, as soon as you do that, you are less effective for that person.
Yeah. So very interesting, man.
How does this, I'm curious, because you talk to people all the time who are talking about closing and coaching and asking great questions. What's it like for you as an experienced salesperson, as a consultant, as a trainer to be hearing about these three things that can destroy a sales rep relationship?
No, and I think I think it's very timely in today's day and age, and also because so many more companies are being cognizant of, or wants to be cognizant of, what's going on with the relationship with the people that they have in the sales world. Let's just put it like this: the average salesperson, I think they're spending, is it 18 months with an organization? 18 months with an organization, and then they're leaving. So if that's the case, if I'm only spending 18 months camping out with you and your company, how much longer could I stay? Like, go back to the Google example. If you were to really focus on me, and if you really cared about me and really understood where I was coming from as a human being, of course I'm going to stay much longer with you. And I think that's one of the thing that I'm seeing with this. And most organizations, quite frankly, just don't do it. They don't spend the time to look at ways that they can help the individual. It's just, perform or you're out.
Yeah, it's a go fast to go fast mentality. And what I'm suggesting for sales leaders, and this is what works when my clients start to slow down. I mean, one of my clients had an operational issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it was $1 million issue.
Dang.
And he was going to have a conversation with his ops leader. And we talked about the mentality going into it. And he started to come in with, we need to make sure this never happens again. And I said, John, so we've talked about blame. Does that sound like a tone of blame, or does that sound a tone of, I'm going to have a great conversation with you. I'm going to make sure that I understand your world?
Yeah.
Totally blame. I said, this person controls one of your biggest assets. They're the backbone of your organization. Do you want them to come out of the meeting empowered, excited to go out and fix it? Or you want them to come out broken and scared to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And, as I coached my client, I said, I need to make sure he comes out empowered. This is too important for me not to be emotionally intelligent and for me to start blaming. And we talked about his language. We talked about questions he could ask. And he went out and he executed it. And his ops person felt empowered, felt like he had the CEO on his side. Those are the moments that gets people to say, you know what, this person really cares. They're going to support me. And I want to work harder for them. And I want to make sure I produce. And that's what we're talking about. That's the feeling that every leader wants to create for their salesperson. And that's the feeling that every salesperson wants to have from their leader.
Yeah. Love it, man. Well, if there's one major piece of advice you want folks to walk away with, what's that one major piece of advice today?
That's what I just said. Your people are your assets. They're the ways you're going to hit your success. So have conversations with them, create psychological safety, be emotionally intelligent so that when they leave a conversation with you, they come out even more excited. They come out wanting to hit a standard. They want to feel good. They want to produce for you. That's what all this is about.
Well, dude, man, you hit a nerve here. You brought some really good insights. And I think, again, like a lot of people are not paying attention to this or doing stuff related to this. So I appreciate you taking that time, appreciate you sharing the wisdom. And, I hope that one person can walk away feeling empowered from the insights that they got today.
I hope so too. And, this is work. You can hear my passion in this because I was a sales guy who didn't always feel safe, who wanted to ask for help, couldn't do it. And I see the difference it makes, with my clients when they start to create an environment where people can ask for help, when people can speak up and they're going to be heard.
Love it, man. And if folks want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
Yeah, Marc, MARC at Improv, IMPROV, mysales.com, or they can reach me at 718-637-7890. I'm based here in Maui, beautiful Hawaii, after stints in New York and Los Angeles.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today. Thank you for being here. And I'll put all that information back in the show notes so folks can get access to you.
That sounds great. It's really been a pleasure. And congratulations on your new son. I know you're going to be the kind of parent that creates an environment where your son can thrive.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. We're super excited for him and to apply all these skills towards helping him have a productive, effective life.
Amen.
Thanks, brother. Way to go, Marc. I'm telling you, straight from Hawaii, Marc came and delivered some amazing insights today, and I want you to connect with him. You can find all the details in the show notes. TheSalesEvangelist.com/the-word episode number 1181. Again, TheSalesEvangelist.com/the-word episode number 1181. And also check out Marc's website, ImprovMySales.com. Again, ImprovMySales.com. If you are a sales leader, check this out. If you are a sales rep, share this with your sales leader. If you are a friend of someone who's a sales leader, please, by all means, share this with them. We all need to learn how we can better have this, improve the relationship with our team. And I know that this stuff sounds sometimes like it's just the emotional stuff, but that's the real things. Those are some of the real things at times that can fix your team. And it may not necessarily be buying more software. It just may be you improving your relationships with your individual reps. And then that will help them to improve their performance. It's amazing. Go back into the show notes to salesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1181. Connect with Marc either way. Tell him that you heard him on the Sales Evangelist podcast and he'll be thrilled. Also, check out TSE Certified Sales Training Program. We have a new semester beginning later in September, and I would love to have you join us, as well as check out Sales Success Summit. All the links are back in the show notes. I share stuff like this because I want to help you guys. I want you to find more ideal customers. I want you to have more meaningful conversations with your prospects. I want you to build stronger value, close more deals. But most importantly, it's to go out each and every single day and do big things. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the episode today as much as I did. And if so, I ask that you leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you find fine podcasts. Also, if you haven't done so already, why don't you go ahead and hit subscribe? show your friends, your colleagues how they can subscribe as well. I will greatly appreciate you doing that. Thank you. My birthday is in the month of August. That could be your birthday gift to me. A nice review and rating on Apple Podcasts. I would truly, truly, truly be grateful for that. Our show today was produced by myself and the Sales Podcast Network. It was edited and mixed together by the one and only Jershon O'Bale. Our graphic designer is Mr. Desin Cunado. Our show note was created by the one and only Miss Rael. Our guest coordinator is Mrs. May Marr. Our podcast production manager is Mrs. Shannon Rasmussen. You can find audio credits to this and all of our episodes in the show notes. And as always, I am your host, your coach, your mentor, your guide down the sales journey, Mr. Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. Sales Podcast Network.